Hello and welcome again to a very English craft room and another in the scrapbooking series. This time a photograph of my daughter's 30th birthday last weekend. This scrapbook layout is scrap lifted from the Scrap Squads 12 Days of Spring challenge. So first of all I printed out a 3 by 2 inch photograph on my selfie Canon, a photograph that was taken in my daughter's friend's back garden where she had a little party with her husband and her friend's husband for her 30th birthday party. I wanted to echo some of the colours that were in the photograph with the papers that I was choosing. I quite liked this one with the flowers and like some smudgy pinks and greys there. Now the balloons in the photograph were a rose gold and my daughter was wearing a dress that was sort of pinks and pastel colours and a pink and pastel coloured cardigan. However, I didn't have any paper that had any rose gold on it, so I chose that with the gold just to give a little bit of highlight of the metallics more than the colour, and chose the peachy colours in these two other papers to link in with the rose gold. So the original scrap lift diagram that I was using had 2 strips down each side. I kind of adapted this slightly. So I'm just flicking through here, sorting through my little box that is all birthday related items, so birthday related papers and embellishments. However, I didn't really find anything much in there other than a couple of things that said happy birthday that I actually wanted to use. I did get those 2 packs of stickers out but didn't actually use any of those in the end. So I had already cut the butterflies there for another layout I was doing, the butterfly paper, and I didn't use it for this layout in the end. Although the colours went nicely, I actually preferred the flowery paper that I've got underneath there, because I felt that actually that matched in better with A, the other bits of paper I'd chosen, and B, the picture. So I wanted the thin strip to go between the 2 different papers there. I actually ended up with it being much thinner than that. So I'm just cutting a bit of this flowery paper. I do end up using the bit there with the holes in it, and I actually stick those underneath because otherwise it would have been a wasted piece of paper. So using my favourite dental tool there to take up the backing off the sticky tape there, the double-sided tape, and I'm just trying to line this up as best I can. Like I said, I do want a piece of paper to go along that join there, but I actually end up with it being much thinner. So I'm just trimming the whole of this amalgamated series of papers to the 12 by 12 and just straightening the edges off. The piece of paper there with the flowers and the smudges on was actually from a pack that was ballet themed, and I've used the papers in other layouts rather than ballet. I think it's really quite pretty. So trying to cut this strip that I'd cut a bit thinner, but it was a big fail, and in the end I end up getting the original sheet of paper back and trimming off a very thin strip, which again I have even more trouble with once I'm trying to stick it down. So the strip is too thin for the double-sided tape I've got out. I do have thinner, but I couldn't be bothered to go and find it. Even though actually it was only just a foot to my right. So I put some wet glue on and get the paper there, and you can see it's fractionally too long, and I think I've decided that I haven't got it straight enough there, so I'm just lining it up again. So then I'm going to try and trim that tiny little bit off, but actually it ends up pulling more of it off than I wanted, so I then have to glue that little bit back down and then use some scissors to trim it down eventually. Every time I used something other than the scissors, it just kept pulling it up away from the paper. So I tried with the trimmer, I tried with the rotary blade, and eventually you'll see I'll use scissors just to trim it off. So now that I've prepared the backing paper, I'm going to have a look at how I want to mount that photograph. and whether I want it straight or at an angle. So I'm going to use the same paper that I've used there on the right hand side. Now that will overlap itself, so like the same paper being on top of the same paper, but I'm going to put some of that transparent paper that's there behind it. For the life of me, I can't remember what it's called. It'll come back to me later. I use it all the time, and for the life of me, I just cannot remember what that is actually called. Parchment paper, there we go, of the parchment paper. And I'm also using that happy birthday that's on parchment paper as well. You'll see I've got a selection of them there to the right, and I think I used the gold one. In fact, I'm almost certain I do. So I'm using the ruler to tear that parchment paper. I'm not even sure parchment paper is the correct term. I'm sure it will come back to me eventually. So just lining things up, and I'm going to stick them down eventually. So I'm having a look for some sort of title or wording in this pack of birthday stickers. They're all on a clear background, so whenever I stick them on, it shows through. So I'm just putting a sticker on there that says something about how old, with her being 30. This is her second birthday that's been in lockdown or semi-lockdown, so it's been really quite difficult to celebrate anything with family members. So hopefully once this is all improved a little bit, we can get out and go and do something. It's my mum's birthday at the end of the month, and we're hoping to be able to do something for that as well. So I've gone through my pink embellishments and pulled out quite a lot of flowers and bows and things there. I'm also looking for some gold ones to link in with the sort of metallics and golds that I've got there already. So there's a few butterflies, and I'm hoping I've got some little balloons that are cut out, which I have. On the original sketch, there is actually a cluster embellishment, so an embellishment cluster on the top left hand as well as the bottom right hand side. However, I'm only going to do one on the right because the printed flowers there, I think, are enough on the left hand side, so it doesn't need any more embellishment over that side. So I didn't want anything too massively big, so those big flowers that are on my right hand side I don't actually end up using. I did and sort of look at using them, but I decided against it. And I didn't want anything that was too sort of stick of rock pink or lipsticky pink in there, because it's more sort of peachy pinks in the flowers and in the photograph. I try and store my embellishments in colours and in themes. So for example, I've got a pot that's red, one that's blue, one that's green. I've got one that's red, white and blue, so all sort of Union Jack type themed. I've got one that's music themed, food themed, animal themed. I've got a box that's cruise themed and a box that's holiday themed, so non-cruise type holiday themes, although they seem to be pretty much interchangeable, and so on. I do the same for my 12x12 and 6x6 and 8x8 papers as well, so they're all in pizza boxes in colours and themed. Comment down below how you store your papers and embellishments. It's always good to share different ideas. Many of the layouts I'm doing recently are using just one smaller photograph or two smaller photographs, whereas in the past I've done them with one large, very large, almost a full 12x12 actually, photograph. I've done them with multiple 6x4s, multiple different sizes, individual 6x4s, individual smaller ones. Sometimes it's good to play around with how many photographs you're using and how big they are. It just gives a different impact on the page. So I've run some of these embellishments, particularly the balloons and the butterflies there, through my Xyron sticker maker. I find this is quite a useful tool, and it's easy just there to peel it up and pop it back down again. It sets after a while, but it does give you a little bit of wriggle room, particularly if you use the cartridges that are movable. So they have one that's permanent and one that's sort of semi-permanent. there. Can't quite think how they term it. It isn't semi-permanent, but it just allows you to have a little bit of a play around. So in this layout I've used double-sided tape, I've used a Xyron sticker maker, and I've used the wet glue. I've also used some foam tape to raise the picture up a little bit, which allows me to tuck some of the embellishments behind, including these little bits of jute string that I'm using for the strings on the balloons. However, when I've used the butterfly stickers there, it's kind of pulled the layers back down because I've done them over the edges of the photograph and onto the backing paper, so it doesn't stand out as much as I'd hoped. Apologies if you can hear a little bit of banging in the background. I think next door neighbours are doing a little bit of DIY. Pink isn't a colour that I naturally go for myself, but some of the photographs I've been scrapbooking recently have actually called for more of the pinks, so it's quite good to actually use up some of the millions of pink embellishments that I seem to have. I do seem to have a lot and use a lot of these little tiny paper flowers that are there that have like a little pearl centre to them, and also lots of these little butterfly stickers that are like washi tape stickers. They can be fiddly to get the backing off, but actually I think they are a nice little embellishment to use. So the wording there that says happy birthday, or it's your birthday, I cut round it a little bit to get rid of some more of the paper that was around it. So you can see here I'm trying to lift up that butterfly, and I put some foam tape behind it to try and raise it up like the photograph, but it really didn't work. You could see the foam tape through it, and I should have known that really, because these stickers are quite see-through. So now I'm having to peel off all that tape that I've stuck, the foam tape that I've stuck on the back of it, and stick it back down again exactly as it was when I first started. I often find that I do things like that where I have to then undo what I've done and put it back to how it originally was. But if we didn't try things, we'd never learn, would we? So today, as I'm filming this voiceover, is the 11th of April, and I'm really looking forward to being able to get back to swimming and things in this coming week, now that the pools and the gyms are going to be open. So I've booked myself a few sessions for the pool and a few sessions for the gym. I might not make them all. I'm going to be fairly busy at work over this next week as well, on my feet nearly all day, so I might feel too tired to go and do too much, but I think a swim would be quite nice. Comment down below what it is that you're looking forward to being able to do soon when some of our lockdown restrictions actually ease. So fiddling around with bits of embellishments there, I was stuck a little bit of glue by mistake on top of the photograph and thought maybe I'd put an embellishment there to cover up where it was, but then decided not, and I wiped it off, which scratched the photo a little bit. So I do end up putting a little sticky gem on where the mark is, so that means I had to put gems on other places in the scrapbook layout, but actually it looked quite nice in the end. So like I say, sometimes a mistake you make can end up being beneficial. So not too far off being finished. I think there's just a few more little embellishments to pop on. So again, using the Xyron sticker maker there to put some of the bits and pieces onto the layout. So now just popping down that little title, and I'm going to stick down the embellishments around it. So like I say, I'd arrange the embellishments first and then or stick them down later on. Sometimes I take a photograph of where I've put everything so I can remember, and sometimes I don't and wing it, and things can be very similar to how they started, or they can be completely different. It just seems to vary from one layout to the next. So I decided I wanted something just above and below the photo there, so I'm just cutting a little bit of this small pink doily to stick on the top and the bottom, and again using the Xyron sticker maker there to put the sticky on the back, because otherwise it's a bit of a nightmare trying to get double-sided tape and things on there, or even glue. So just tucking it in behind the photograph, behind all the layers there. And I take a little bit of time positioning the bottom one just to make sure it looks how I want it. So I didn't get it quite right to start with, so I used the dental tool just to release it and just play around with it a little bit. So just doing the final touches and then it'll be finished. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, could you please click on the like and subscribe buttons and maybe put some comments for me. Maybe even suggest what sort of scrapbooking videos you might like to see. It's all very helpful for me and my channel. So I'd like to thank you for joining me in a very English craft room and hope that you will join me again soon. Thank you.